Hey, Adam.
Hey,
Oh my God, those earrings are amazing.
thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm trying to get a really good look at those. Yeah, wow. Did you make those?
I didn't. They're from my friend's company, Indie City, and they're called
Oh,
Snag Blankets.
oh, they're called snagging blankets?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it because they snag your hair?
Uh, no. Snagging is something completely different.
Oh, well, can you tell me what that is? I'm just kidding. I
It's
think I just
sexual.
figured it out. I think I just figured it out. And all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, this guy is super old. I had no
But we're
idea for,
probably around the same age.
oh yeah, I mean, we might be. I've never been hip. So, I mean, that's not like I'm going to start now. So I like to leave the format really open. I just want to hear, I'd love to just learn about you, like anything you want. Your story would be probably, well, I know it would be beneficial for people out there just trying to figure maybe their own stuff out, right?
Right, right.
And I know you've just been through so much over the last even just a couple weeks that yeah,
Yeah,
would you mind just taking off and telling us your story,
sure. I'll just start with an introduction, I guess.
please?
My name is Autumn Whiteway, and my spiritual name is Night Singing Woman. Um, I'm Soto Métis, and I was born and raised in Mohkinstsis in Treaty 7 territory, but um, a lot of my family still resides in Barons River First Nation in Manitoba.
Hmm.
Um, I am a first time mom, and I'm a single mom. My son is 14 months old, and his name is Migzy, and he's changed my life and my path.
Can you say his name again? I'm sorry, I just
Sure.
missed it.
It's Migizy.
Megazy.
Yes.
Oh
And
wow,
that
what is?
means bald eagle in Ojibwe.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
Yeah. Um, I am an archaeologist by trade. And then I
Okay,
also started doing art a few years ago. And then over the past year, I started doing curation. And I started doing that kind of in my hospital bed after my C-section with my son. So it all came
okay.
together really quickly. And now I've put together 4 shows in addition to curating the Artist of the Month for Making Treaty 7 Cultural Society.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
you
So
are a busy lady.
I know my whole maternity leave was extremely busy, probably the busiest I've ever been in my life. And that's not related to my son.
Yeah, wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can multitask.
Yes, absolutely. I'd like to slow down a little bit, but there's
You
no
know
time
what?
for
It's not
that.
a bad idea.
Yeah, yeah. I'm actually looking at starting a business now,
Oh,
which would be, of course, archaeological assessment, but I'd really like to focus on traditional knowledge and land use studies, as well as Indigenous research and consultation. And that would be so I can have a better work-life balance. Because as an archaeologist, I'm often out in the field for up to 3 weeks at a time, and I just can't do that now as a single mom.
yeah. Wow, I just want to pick your brain about everything. Can I just
Yeah,
ask you some
absolutely.
questions? Yeah.
Go for it. Yeah.
So archaeology, how did you get into archaeology? And what are some of the things that entail going out for 3 weeks? Because I know nothing about it.
Yeah.
Unless it's like Indiana Jones. If it's like Indiana Jones, then
I
I might know a little bit.
I wish it was. I was actually shocked when I went to university, and I was really surprised how how much it was not like Indiana Jones and how actually scientific it was.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I feel
there's
like the
less
movies
action.
lied to me.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's a little bit um, less interesting. Actually, no, it's very interesting in its own ways, but it's
Mhm.
a little bit less action packed than you see on the screen.
Yeah, I was going to say it's probably very interesting, especially if it's highly scientific, right?
Yeah, there's so many different specializations you can have in archaeology.
Hmm.
My own specialization is actually mortuary ethnoarchaeology, and I
Okay.
worked with Bedouin in Jordan. And I did my own research there about their mortuary practices. And so ethnoarchaeology is working with living people to explain archaeological problems.
Mm.
And I was working with them to take a look at how we can create an archaeology of nomadic people, because they're often ignored because archaeologists think that they're ephemeral or invisible in the archaeological record. So
Yeah.
if we looked at their graves, then that's one set place on the landscape that we can find ancient people. So that's what my research was about. And I loved working with the Bedouin, and I saw so many similarities in their way of life compared to the way indigenous people used to live here.
Yeah.
And similar struggles with colonization as well.
Really? The
Yeah.
Bedouin people were they invaded as well?
For example, in Israel, due to the situation in Israel and a lot of people moving into Israel, a lot of the Bedouin people there, where that was their traditional territory, have been displaced,
Okay.
as well as the creation of borders that separated a lot of tribes from their other tribal members because they were nomadic. And then I've seen stories in Israel where people would have their tents knocked down because of the illegal settlements and such. So there's a lot going on, and there's a lot in Jordan where I was working as well. I feel like they're trying to move the Bedouin into a more sedentary role so that people can start owning the land and growing crops.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a lot going on over there.
I can't even imagine what it was like to be over there working, because you would have been so enmeshed in the culture there.
I've also excavated there, and I've excavated in Italy and Iceland at a cemetery. Where else? I've worked in Ethiopia doing research with marginalized potters, and
wow.
And I worked in a few provinces in Canada, and I became a permit holding archaeologist. And I got 3 degrees in archaeology, and my other specialties are human osteology, or physical anthropology, and then I've done a lot of in my work role, I've done a lot of zoo archaeology, which is working with animal bones, because you can kind of take the knowledge of human osteology and apply it to animals. Yeah, so
well, I can't believe how like talented you are. Like, what is it? You're welcome. And I mean, honestly, I don't mean to, gush, but it's kind of incredible, actually.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome, because in a way you are like Indiana Jones. You've kind of traveled to places. You may not have fought Nazis or anything like that, but maybe you have. I have no idea, because I don't know what it's like in lots of places.
Yeah. So. Oh, there's my son. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. That's all good.
Say too.
Nice. It's good to hear him in the background.
Yeah. Oh, probably his baby songs have stopped playing, so let me restart them.
Yeah, we don't want to go without the songs.
No, that's what keeps him occupied when I do.
That's right. I bet it helps. Yeah.
Yeah. So archaeology is really, really interesting, and there's just so many specializations that people can have. It's too vast for one person to know everything. So there's so many little specializations.
Yeah, and the more that you guys, because you're an archaeologist, so the more that you archaeologists dig and find different things about culture, because wasn't there something just recently discovered in North America?
Yeah, there was a find of some children's footprints in New Mexico.
Yeah.
And that has pushed back the date of the colonization of North America to at least 21,000 years.
Wow.
And it's pretty securely dated. I think they radiocarbon dated some seeds that were found with the footprints. So in addition to that, you probably have to add a couple thousand years for people to have traveled down to New Mexico. So I think they're saying approximately 23,000 years we can safely say that indigenous people have been in North America. And
Wow.
originally, I know there was some finds in Chile that were about 13,500 years old.
Hmm.
So it pushes things back quite a ways, which kind of goes along with a lot of creation stories as well, which the dating would be much earlier than what was known
Hmm.
scientifically previously.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
I
I
just,
was really happy to hear that news because I saw a lot of mainstream archaeological colleagues in academia that are accepting this evidence.
Mhm.
In the past, there's been some other things where people may not have accepted it right away, but now it seems pretty secure that people have been here longer than originally thought.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting because I'm not like I'm not a I don't know a lot about it obviously, but I had
Mhm.
heard that there's like lots of almost like infighting amongst archaeologists over some of the data.
Absolutely. And I think that's one thing that kind of keeps science going and keeps everybody on their toes is you have to question everything and think critically about everything and make sure that all the data is correct
Hmm.
and peer reviewed before you can believe it. So um,
Yeah, that peer review is important.
absolutely. Yeah. And in this day and age of Facebook and social media, I just find that people aren't thinking as critically as they used to. They'll be very
Mhm.
quick to accept the first thing they see, and I've even noticed that among some academics. But
Mhm.
yeah, hopefully we can remind ourselves to question the evidence.
Yeah, that's a good thing to say. That's an
I
important.
always try to go to the original source and review it for myself, and then
Yeah,
I have a better grasp on the data.
it's obviously helpful when you trust your own intellectual instincts, right? To
Absolutely.
get you to that critical point of, well, not just comprehending it, but of like
Mhm.
analyzing it, dissecting it.
Yes.
Um, yeah, and I think, man, I wish I did more of that. To be honest with you, I probably don't do enough of it, right? Like where you kind of hear an answer and you're like, okay, it sounds reasonable, but
Yeah,
that's like,
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah, and I
not
think
necessarily
not
true.
questioning it is leads to a lot of conspiracy theories, and we've
Oh,
really seen that with COVID.
oh my goodness. I didn't realize there were so many conspiracy theories, to be honest with you,
Yeah,
until some of the people I work with regularly just start talking about some very interesting things,
right.
like incredibly interesting ideas about life on this planet.
Yes. Probably heard some similar theories.
I am sure you have.
Yes.
I don't doubt it one bit. Yeah. So okay, archaeology
Yeah.
and that's just one of your skills.
Yeah. And then a few years ago, I moved into the artistic world.
Mhm.
It's something that I always wanted to do, but I was in university for 10 years and I had no time beyond classes and executive positions and all sorts of stuff related to academia. So it wasn't too long after I finished my third degree, I started testing my hand at art. And then I really wanted to learn a lot of different traditional indigenous crafts um,
Mm.
as a means to reclaim my culture. Um, and I just found it really inspirational. And in addition, it was really calming for me as well to work on those
Mm.
crafts. So then I applied to do a craft show, which is actually where I met you the first time, and that was
That's
my
right.
first ever show.
Oh, you
And
did so amazing.
oh, thank you. Yeah, it was
Mhm.
such an incredible experience. And then I met a lot of people in Calgary's Indigenous arts scene, and it's just taken off from there. And I just absolutely love it. And I love being part of the artist community here.
Mm.
I use my art. Originally, I was working in the Woodlands School of Art, which was grandfathered by Norval Morrisseau, which is an Ojibwe style of art. Uh,
Okay.
which focuses on kind of X-ray views of animals. There's a lot of symbolism in it. But from there, I kind of took on more of an activist role with my artwork to highlight Indigenous issues. And so I work in both mediums, and but I really love doing the activist art, to bring people's attentions and to bring a dialogue to some of the issues that face Indigenous people.
And there's like so much going on that's always gone on that lots of us are just becoming aware of.
Yeah.
In terms of Indigenous difficulties, right? Like the lack of rights, the lack of water, the so many lackings, right?
Yeah. Yeah, even amongst a lot of Indigenous people, in their own families, it was hidden from them that somebody went to residential school, for example. My grandfather passed away before I was born, but he either went to residential school or Indian day school. I'm unclear on which one.
And what was the difference, if you don't mind me asking?
Residential school would be that they were sent away, away from their family. I believe for Indian day school, they probably just went to the school for the day and then they were able to return home at night.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I know in my family's community, the missionaries were very prevalent, and a lot of my family there is very religious.
Okay.
And I didn't grow up with Christian religion or any religion at all, so it's very different for me speaking to them, and then sometimes being told that practicing my traditional culture, I'm made to feel like it's wrong. But
even by like, so that's like inter violence, right?
Yeah.
Is that what it's called? I can't remember the name.
I'm not quite sure what. Oh, maybe like lateral violence, you mean?
Lateral violence. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah. For example, I've been saving my son's placenta to do a placenta ceremony on what would be the home territory, and I was told we don't do that. And then I started questioning it. If I was to try to go there and bury my son's placenta, which would be a traditional ceremony, am I going to have people trying to stop me? And then, but I had an Ojibwe elder tell me in the past that I should bury my son's placenta there. And I started questioning, do I bury it here in Alberta, closer to home, where I was born, even though this isn't my traditional territory? I don't know. So it left me with a lot of questions and confusion about trying to practice my traditional ceremonies.
Oh, no doubt.
Yeah, and I felt perhaps like I'm looked down upon because my son has never touched the outside ground, because I'm waiting for him to do a walking out ceremony. But yeah, I don't practice Christianity, so yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah.
They have lots of practitioners.
Yes. They sure do.
Yeah, they have enough.
Yeah.
I think we're good. We're good over here.
Yeah. I'm just trying to reclaim my culture, and sometimes I find it frustrating, seeing as Christianity in a lot of ways was forced upon Indigenous people, and then to look down upon people that are trying to reclaim their traditional practices. Yeah, it's hard. Yeah,
I can't imagine how hard it is.
Yeah, and then I just see the harm that was caused by the church with residential schools, and then I find it hard to accept that other people still want to practice that religion. Yeah.
Yeah, I do too. I honestly, there's just some times where I'm like, what's the point?
Yeah.
I know, but I know how important faith is. So on the
Mhm.
one hand, I say, what's the point of this? But then
Yeah.
I say, okay, but for some good people, whatever the faith is, gives them the desire to be decent to other
Yeah.
people, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I see how the worldview of creator and
Mm.
God can intermix, and
Mhm.
how it could have been adopted into indigeneity.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, but I think that creator is so much more like of the earth, right? And of
Yeah, it's a lot more
what is.
spiritual.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's not the same hierarchy that exists in some other religions, right? That hierarchy of, like, I mean, before Christianity and probably Islam, there was no hierarchy. Like there was of people over animals, like things were equal, right? Living things were equal. And
Absolutely. That's one of the differences in worldview.
mhm.
And I've actually been listening to a really interesting podcast. It's a pretty short podcast
Mhm.
actually, called Spirit to Soar.
Okay.
And then there was one episode that kind of discusses the difference in the European colonial worldview versus indigenous worldview at contact. And um, yeah, it's really interesting, and
Mhm.
how um, European colonialism focused more on individualism, and indigenous people used to uh, just take what was needed. But then
Mhm.
um, when the fur trade came, then they were taking more than was necessary. And that led to a lot of issues. For example,
Yeah.
with near extinction of the bison.
Mhm. And that's tragic. Like just tragic how there was no end to the greed, right? Just no
Yeah,
end to it.
yeah. And that extinction happened, or near extinction happened so quickly.
Mhm.
I think it was aided by the railroad, I heard, because people would just shoot their guns off the trains at all the bison
Mhm.
um, that were alongside the train. And yeah, that certainly helped move things along quicker.
Really? They would just be on the train and they would just be going by shooting them?
Hmm.
I don't understand why. I don't get it.
Yeah, all those bison hides. And then a lot of the bones eventually, once they were picked clean, were
Mhm.
sent off to make bone china.
Wow.
And
Okay.
they were so
Yeah.
close to the train that it was easy to just load everything up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That I mean, again, that makes sense, but again, it sounds a lot like greed.
Yes. Absolutely. Indigenous people were more about community and serving the whole, um,
Mm.
and then there was that kind of individualistic perspective that came along, and very greedy. Um,
Mm. Very much so.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
which was
Very
very much in
individualistic.
opposition to the indigenous worldview.
Mhm. And that's probably why, I mean, honestly, one of the reasons, besides every reason they could think of, but why the colonists were so afraid, right? It was just so contrary, like to their worldview, like
Yeah,
so contrary.
yeah.
Um,
I often
and
wonder how the world got that way.
yeah, right. Like,
Yeah.
and it makes me wonder, and I mean, there's probably lots of answers for it. You might even have some, but um, how all across this planet, indigenous people were pushed from their homes.
Mhm.
So how does that happen with every other culture? You know what I mean? Because it's not
Yeah.
just Western culture;
No.
it's everywhere.
Yeah.
Like,
Absolutely.
you
Yeah.
know,
Colonization happened throughout history in
mhm,
many different places. So
mhm. And
yeah, there's a lot of displaced people over time in
right?
history.
It's just crazy that we've never stopped, though.
Yeah. we are explorers.
Yeah, explorers, that's great that we explore, right? But to explore and eventually learn that, hey, we don't have to kill everybody. Like, right? Like, we don't have to. We could like try something different.
I often try to understand things from an animal behavior perspective.
Mm-hmm.
When I was in university, I took an animal behavior class, which ended up being kind of through the primatology department of anthropology.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were looking at some types of apes and monkeys and their behaviors, and it was interesting. I can't remember exactly which types it was, or if they were apes or monkeys, but oftentimes there would be a male that would come in and start a war with a different troop and try to take over. And so I kind of tried to apply that perspective, because it seems like a lot of wars are started by men. And
that's probably, I bet you that's
look at
nearly 100% true.
Yeah. I know it's probably not all 100% true, but
yeah.
I can
Well,
think
and
of some female warriors throughout history, but
many female warriors, I'm certain, right? But that doesn't mean they started the war.
Exactly. Yeah. But I try to look at it from that perspective of primatology and like our human ancestors and what drove us. Was it territory? What was it to drive the males of the species towards war and fighting? It's really, really interesting if you think about it from an animal behavior perspective.
You're 100% correct. And the animal perspective really does explain a lot, right? Like, and not just like the primates, but biological reasons, right? Like,
it might be something evolutionary, so it's like
exactly. Yeah, exactly, right. Where it's and I don't think that humans, we're not the only animal that kills for fun, right? Like or just for sport. Like, I mean, there's animals do it to each other all the time. You know, even in the same like species of animals, right? Like it's part of, it seems like it's part of being alive. You have to fight, or it's that fight instinct in a living creature. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then in humans, it expresses itself so strangely because we have that frontal lobe.
Yeah, so, you have the intellect and everything to go along with it. So
yeah, that's right. And we can have an existential crisis while we're doing all this crazy shit.
We are a strange species.
Yeah, it's true. Very true.
Yeah. I kind of feel like the earth might benefit a little bit from us not being here.
You know what? I think we're what was that? I can't remember where it comes from, but it's like, we are the only species that if we disappear, the earth would flourish.
Yes.
Right? Like,
true.
Yeah. It would flourish until, I guess until the sun explodes, whenever that's going to happen.
Yeah.
But that's a long time down the road, I think. So.
Oh, hopefully not in my lifetime.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think it's in anyone who's alive right now's lifetime, thankfully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess they'd probably know. Like,
yeah, well, I think they do. Again, I'm no mathematician, but I think they have it figured out.
Yeah.
we no longer believe the sun revolves around us and stuff like that. So that's nice.
Oh, yes. We're the center of the universe.
Right?
Yeah.
And then it's no wonder that there was so much trouble with Christianity, hey? Like, yeah. Not only does this religion tell us that the humanity is the center of the universe, but we're telling you you're the center of the universe. You know, that God thinks you're special.
Yeah.
Which, don't get me wrong, maybe there is a God and maybe God thinks we're special. Right. But I think creators would think everyone's special and everything is special. Right?
Absolutely.
Like, not just one person.
Humans above everything else.
Yeah, I just find that hard to believe, right?
Yeah,
So,
me too. When I walk through the park, I'm very lucky. I live by some of the major parks in town. I take a look at everything around me, and I just feel like everything is special. Um, the
yeah.
trees, the leaves, everything is a piece of art to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I had one elder say to me that, oh, he's coughing.
Is he
I
okay?
had, you okay, baby? Should I start your baby song?
More songs.
Maybe that was to get attention to the fact that his songs had ended.
Yeah, he was just like getting your attention.
Yeah, yeah, he does the fake cough sometimes.
Oh, does he?
Yeah,
Clever lad.
I know. I'm good.
Well, he's going to be smart like his mom, I bet.
I hope so. He's a
I bet.
major book reader. He'll
Is he?
Yeah, he'll always go straight for his books rather than his toys. So
Yeah.
that makes me happy.
Wow. That's fantastic.
Yeah. But anyways, I was saying that
Mm-hmm.
an elder told me that Na'a, which is Mother Earth, is the greatest artist, and that she
Mm-hmm.
makes a new picture once 4 times a year. So
Mm-hmm.
I went to the park the other day, and just there were so many beautiful colors. And the way everything's changing right now, it just looks so beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It really does. I took a walk on Monday, and I believe whatever that elder, what he told you or she told you. You didn't specify gender. Um, yeah, that's true. 100% true. Like
Yeah.
I got to take a walk and take some pictures. It's just so beautiful,
Yeah.
right?
And I've started doing a little bit of ecological art.
Okay, what does that look like?
So the first one that I ever did was earlier this year, and it was actually inspired by that elder. He was
Mm.
talking about land-based art, and so I laid down tobacco and I collected a bunch of plant materials. That was last fall, and then I believe it was in January there was a really good snowfall. So I had this nice fresh bed of snow, and I thought that would be the perfect background. And I strategically placed all of these little plant materials. Some was cattail fluff, and I'm not sure the names of a lot of the other plants, but I laid them down, and it looked like a portrait of a bison in the end.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you can use like a berry for the eye.
Yeah,
Just there's so many different things that you can do. I'm hoping
that's
I can teach a class on ecological art very soon. That I
wow.
just with all the leaves right now, it's the perfect time. You can place all the different colors as feathers,
Hmm.
and it forces you to look at every little thing in nature as a piece of art and strategize in your head how to put them all together into one cohesive artwork.
Wow.
How can I place this berry, or
Yeah.
this leaf has all these little brown splotches on it? How can I use that?
Hmm.
How can I use this piece of bark with some orange lichen on it?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's amazing. It's fun, and then you just let it go back to nature at the end.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, right? Like yeah, it just stays where it is,
Yeah, absolutely.
goes home. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So how did you like? What was your life like growing up? Like, did you always want to be an artist and an archaeologist? Like, or did that kind of develop?
Um, I was pretty good at art when I was younger, but I didn't
Mhm.
do much past high school. I got so busy. I was in a band, so I started playing at bars when I was 15.
Mhm. What kind of music did you play?
I was a ska musician.
What's a ska?
Ska, it's a type of
Yeah.
music that was originally born in Jamaica in the 1950s, 60s.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah. And then my voice was a little bit like Gwen Stefani from No Doubt, which
Oh,
actually
wow.
started as a ska band.
Yeah.
Yeah, so um,
So you
I
can sing too.
Yeah. It's been
Wow.
many years. I actually
Yeah.
wanted to go to musical theater school for a while, but I decided in the end that that was too stressful for me. I used to
Mhm.
perform a lot, but I always suffered from stage fright. So in the end, I decided to pursue other paths, and then I eventually went to university.
Mhm.
I didn't actually start university till I was 26. And I actually started university before I got my high school diploma in the mail.
Oh, really? Wow.
I had gone to high
Good for
school
you.
at alternative high school
Okay.
after I tried regular high school. I was in French immersion, but I just didn't didn't feel like I belonged with the people there. So
Mm.
it was very stressful for me. And so um, eventually I ended up at alternative high school, which was amazing. And I came out of my shell there. They allowed me to be myself, which was, I was a punk rock girl. I was in the punk rock scene. And
Oh, cool. Punk rock
yeah,
is good shit.
yeah, I started going to shows when I was about 13 or 14 with my brother. And um, that was my life. I used to go to every single show.
Mhm.
Um, and it was a lot smaller back then. There wasn't nearly as many people as go to shows nowadays.
Yeah.
Just these small venues, and it was amazing. I loved it, but I just didn't feel like I fit in with the regular people in
Mhm.
high school. Um, Other than that, I had a pretty normal upbringing,
Mhm.
stable upbringing. My parents were really good. Um, but oh, I lost my train of thought. Where was I going with all this? I I was a really busy kid
Yeah.
with my bands in high school, and then I was working full time towards the end of high school, um, and yeah, I eventually started running an adult store when I was still in high school.
Oh, that's
Uh,
awesome.
yeah. And then I was there for about 5.5 years, and then I switched it up and I went over to a law firm.
Oh, wow. You went from an adult store to a law firm.
Yeah.
And I bet you, I bet you this, I bet you there was just as many slimy people in the law firm as there was that came in at the adult store.
Probably.
I'm
And
just kidding.
I remember hearing from one of my friends who kind of put all the food out for meetings and all that. He told me that the people downstairs called me the weird girl, which I was okay with because who really
Yeah.
wants to be normal?
Well, definitely. And you
Yeah,
definitely don't want to necessarily fit into a law firm, right?
yeah. It was. I always, whenever I had these kind of normal jobs in offices, I had to hide. I have
Yeah.
two septum piercings, so I always had to take those out, and I hated
Mm,
that I couldn't just be me.
yeah.
I always had funky hair. I don't now. Now it just my hair's so long that I'm scared to bleach it and wreck it again. But
Oh yeah, it looks amazing.
thank you.
You're
Yeah, I
welcome.
used to have like rainbow hair
Hmm.
and try
I
lots
think
of
you had
different.
rainbow hair when I first met you, didn't you?
Oh, it's possible.
Yeah, I think so.
I used to do things like purple with black stripes and
Hmm.
all sorts of hairstyles. I used to go
That
into
looks
my
good too, though.
stylist and be like, okay, just do what you want.
Yeah. Oh, I bet you they love that.
Yeah, she did.
Hmm.
So yeah, then I ended up with these office positions, and then eventually I ended up at the Alberta Securities Commission, and then I was for the first couple years of university, 2 3 years, I was working full time and going to school full time. So that was extremely busy. Um,
Hmm.
I, I kind of had a BlackBerry for each hand, and I'd be trying to solve people's problems in university class.
You're juggling blackberries.
Yeah, but from the office world, I kind of realized that I'd rather be outside. Oh, sorry, my son is blowing mouth farts.
That's okay. We need a
Interrupt.
soundtrack for this episode. We're gonna use your son's mouth farts.
All right, keep
Totally.
going, boy, keep going.
Yeah, keep it up, my friend.
This is how he interrupts every interview.
I love it.
Yeah, so I decided archaeology is what I wanted to do as a child.
Mm-hmm.
So let me go back to that. And as we discussed earlier, I kind of thought it would be a little bit more like Indiana Jones.
Yeah, yeah, which explains why from as a child you wanted to do it, right? Because it looks so
Indy
exciting.
was my hero growing up.
Yeah, right.
I was constantly out in the sandbox. So
Mm-hmm.
I actually had a list of jobs that I wanted when I was a child. I was going to be
did you?
Archaeologist, a paleontologist. Because I started writing a book about dinosaurs when I was 5, and I didn't end writing it until I was 12 or 13, and then I suddenly wanted to be an Egyptologist. But when I was little, I thought herpetology, entomology, or a veterinarian, and that was my list.
Yeah.
So eventually I went back to one of those.
Yeah, no doubt. And you kind of, what else did you study? It was something else.
So I have a Bachelor of Science honors in archaeology, concentrating on physical anthropology. I have a
physical anthropology.
Yeah, I have a Bachelor of Arts in Greek and Roman Studies, and then a Master of Arts in Anthropology.
Okay.
They all are archaeology focused.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, and I've been told that I need to go back and do a PhD by many an academic.
Yeah. Well, I bet.
That was my original plan. I was gonna do a PhD, and I got shirk funding that I actually turned down.
Oh, really?
Several years ago. Yeah, I was one of the very few people that was going to get shirk funding that year. And my ex-husband, who's from Jordan, wouldn't have been able to come with me to England, where I was going to go to school.
Mm-hmm.
I had already left him behind in Calgary to do my master's degree in Winnipeg. So I just I turned it down because I didn't want to leave him behind again, and that was a poor choice.
That's too bad.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I know it's something that I'm sure I could achieve again. And
yeah, I mean, well, you could do whatever you put your mind to, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's more a matter of time and will at this point. It would be difficult with a baby, but not impossible.
Mm-hmm. Nothing's impossible, especially when you're like obviously multi-talented human.
Yeah, I'm sure it wouldn't be too bad at all, actually.
Yeah, I think it would be, well, by the sounds of it. I don't know you, but it sure seems like you're one of those folks who could do it. So
yeah.
But I find it hard to believe that you spent 10 years in university, like, and you went in at 26. Sorry, my brain does math like that. It's like there's no way you're like late 30s.
I'm actually 41.
What?
Yeah.
Early 40. Oh my goodness. Wow.
Yeah, okay, I'll be 42 soon.
Hey, good. I'm glad that I guessed low. After I said that, I was like, wait a minute, what if she's really much younger?
I went into university at the age of 12.
I know, at 12, right? Yeah. I know. I'm like, oh no, she was baiting me into it. So you wanted to be an archaeologist from the time you were young.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so was it everything you expected, or what? Like, kind of not, well, I guess it wasn't what you expected because it wasn't Indiana Jones.
Right.
But it must be pretty cool that you went to some pretty interesting places on the globe.
Yeah, it was amazing. Oh, let me just turn this up so we can hear his songs. It was amazing. I got a lot of scholarships throughout university, and I kind of applied those to taking some programs overseas so I could travel a lot. I just felt like if I got scholarships, I need to apply it to my education, and I didn't realize you could use it for other things, but I have no regrets because I saw some amazing things, and I did some programs overseas, and took part in some excavations overseas. Archaeology in Canada was a little bit different than I expected it would be.
How so?
It's called cultural resource management. So oftentimes it's not done for archaeology's sake, it's more done for industry. So for example, a company wants to go in and build a pipeline, and we would go in and kind of salvage as much as we could before that happened. And then the permit holding archaeologists would give the approval for, say, the pipeline to go ahead. In BC, there's a lot of kind of forestry archaeology.
But
so I feel like in BC, they're trying to avoid doing excavation, and it's more like marking off areas that shouldn't be disturbed. Whereas here, it's a little bit more of a salvage situation.
Okay.
Yeah. More songs after.
It's all good.
It's one of those situations where it stops like every 3 songs because it thinks that it's an episode.
Oh, okay, I got you.
Are you still watching?
Yeah, are you still paying attention? That's funny. Yeah, are you still watching? Of course I am. What else would I be doing?
Don't ask me.
Yeah, you're disrupting the flow of the show. Cool. It's so interesting. What else was I going to ask you? I forgot. It's okay. You can please continue with your story. I'm sure I'll think of more questions.
This is part of my story. I guess one of the major things that affected my life is when I was, how old was I? I was probably about 21 or 22. And I used to travel to New York City every year. So it was my 3rd year in a row in New York City. And I arrived on September 10th, 2001. And the next morning I had set my alarm to be at the World Trade Center because that was the only place at that time that you could get this 7-day unlimited subway pass. They had some vending machines there. So I was probably between half a kilometer to less than a kilometer away from the World Trade Centers, where I was subletting an apartment. And I woke up to the radio and I heard that there was an air traffic disaster, and I just like rose out of bed like, what? And then I went over to the window. I was supposed to be there when the plane hit, but because of the difference in humidity, and I had worked 2 months straight before that, I was exhausted, and I had a really sore throat when I woke up. So I was moving slower than anticipated and stayed in bed longer. So I ran over to the window, and then I saw the second plane hit.
Oh my God.
Yeah, my brother was calling because he was watching the news, and fortunately he got a hold of me because after that I couldn't get a hold of my family for 3 days because there was some major cell towers on top of the World Trade Centers that went down. So I accumulated like an $850 cell bill just trying to call home.
Wow. So you were supposed to be at work.
I wasn't supposed to be at work. I was just supposed to be at the World Trade Center.
Okay.
Yeah, but I was going to be there at that exact time. I had set my alarm, and that was kind of around the time that I was going to be there and start my day. And I know had I been there at the time, I would have been one of those people rushing into the building trying to save people. So I watched the buildings fall that day. I watched everything live out the window and off the roof of the building. And I really had survivor's guilt for many years. I went back for the first few memorials, and the first year I I wrote a letter for the person that took my place because I felt that that should have been my place. I should have been there saving people. If I had just been on time, that's what I would have been doing. So that was really hard, and I was with an abusive man at that time, and he was trying to escape New York City and leave me behind. I remember we went for a walk after watching the events of the day for many hours, and then we went to Times Square, and somebody said, "What are you doing here? There's threats of nerve gas." And that's when I kind of lost it. I got really scared, and I walked the whole way back to the apartment backwards, waiting for a taxi cab. And there was none. The city was shut down. People had left. It was like a ghost town. I didn't see a taxi in those like 25 blocks, which is crazy.
It's New York, right? That is crazy.
Yeah, that was the second time I had seen New York shut down. In 1999, I was there during a hurricane, so it was shut down then. I think they shut down all the subways and everything. But yeah, it was such a scary time, and to see everything just out my window or from the roof of the building, it was pretty intense. It was like, is this even happening? Is this real? Am I just having a bad night?
Yeah, I got goosebumps. Wow.
Yeah. I was actually in the barricaded zone for the first 5 days. And there was a few places open in the neighborhood, but I didn't have a lot of food, and everything was shut down. So the only people that could open were people that like lived in that barricaded zone. Yeah. So eventually, after about 5 days, I could get a mask from one store. But I could walk down to the World Trade Center site because I was within that zone. If I left the barricaded zone, I would have not been allowed to re-enter because I couldn't prove I lived in there. So yeah, I had to wear a wet towel over my face all the time because the air just burned because of all the debris that was in the air. And then everything in my building was kind of covered in the dust. The building was covered in dust.
Well, I can't, man. Wow.
Yeah. And I remember
that just must have been so unreal.
It was. I remember walking one day, I think it was after they removed the outer barricade, which I was within. And there was somebody giving out flyers for some things that they needed to be brought to the pier, like Band-Aids and all sorts of things for the people that were working at the site trying to recover people. And I saw this firefighter who was walking along with his head down, and I passed him, and just the dead look in his eyes, and just he was so traumatized, and I will never ever forget the way he looked. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he committed suicide afterwards. He just looked so traumatized by the things that he was seeing.
Oh man, it's hard to imagine surviving that and then not having so much pain and guilt and stuff to carry.
Yeah. I mean, I've never seen so much turmoil in somebody's face and in their eyes and their soul before.
Yeah. Oh, I bet that must have been awful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. And I mean, I imagine that every year it's hard for you. Was it hard this year? Because it wasn't that long ago. It was just a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah. And it was one of those big anniversaries, 20 years. Yeah. It's starting to get easier. I was diagnosed long ago with PTSD because of September 11th, and because I was dating an abuser at that time. One thing that he wouldn't allow that would have allowed me to help process the situation better was he wouldn't allow any media or anything related to September 11th into our home. So I actually didn't see a lot of the video coverage that everybody else saw until several years after September 11th happened, when we were no longer together. And it would have probably helped me to see those videos and such early on, to help process and to know everything that went on. But he wanted to keep me in the dark, because I guess it probably caused him trauma to see it, because he saw the same things that I saw. But yeah, we process things in different ways. So that really hindered my recovery. I'll probably always have PTSD related to that. If I see a commercial related to a show about September 11th, I'm definitely in tears. Yeah, especially when I see some of the things about the jumpers.
Yeah, that's so intense.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I appreciate you talking about it.
One of the worst days of my life.
Yeah.
But also, as I've said before, one of the best days of my life, because I survived, and here I am 20 years later, and I'm trying to make something of myself, and I have a beautiful little boy.
You are making something of yourself, for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. You said trying to make something. I'm like, no, you are. You've made something of yourself.
I went through suicidal periods when I was a teenager, but I think I wasn't surrounded by the right people. So once I found the right people, and once I found my community, then things changed.
Yeah.
And now I'm happy I didn't do something stupid when I was younger.
Yeah, no doubt.
I've done a lot of living in all that time.
Yeah, you sure have.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I know anyone else who's done as much living in that time, actually. I'd have to really think about it. And I don't know if I got it in me tonight.
Hopefully I continue on.
Yeah, exactly. But like, is there anything else you want to talk about? I just really appreciate you coming on, and I don't want to take up all your whole evening.
Oh yeah. I don't know.
Because I've been looking forward to hearing your story, and I am not disappointed. I'll tell you that.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, I'm sorry. You probably think I'm just blowing smoke at you, but I mean it. It's just nice to get to.
I appreciate that.
Right on.
Yeah. Other than that, so I've been in several abusive relationships now. And, of course, there was the
I'm
one
sorry
with
to hear that.
son's father. Yeah, but when I left the man that I was with on September 11th, then that's when I started planning to go to university. And then I thought, okay, I'm going to start my life fresh, and rather than keep traveling to New York every year, I'm going to go somewhere else. So originally I was thinking Nepal, and then I went to a travel show, and then I ended up traveling through the Middle East, and that's where I fell in love with the Middle East and Middle Eastern history, which was kind of more my focus in archaeology.
Okay, cool. That's a very cool history in the Middle East, for sure.
Yeah. So, and that's when I fell in love as well with adventure travel. So my first trip, like big adventure travel trip, was when I was 25, and I went to Turkey, Syria, Jordan, and Egypt. And then I've done some other trips that were absolutely incredible, because I love being immersed in the cultures rather than going on like a cruise or sitting on a beach. I just want to roll up somewhere and find an adventure there. I don't do too much research on the places that I'm going, and I just try to be spontaneous and find things to do when I'm there. So oftentimes these trips are overlanding trips, and so they entail usually about 50% camping, and then you're fully immersed in the culture. So I did another trip to Central Asia. So I did Turkey again then, and then Iran, Turkmenistan, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, which was one of my favorite countries. And I've done
Really?
China, mostly across the Muslim part of China, and then Mongolia. And then
Wow.
I did South America as well, through Argentina, Chile, Bolivia, and Peru. So I've met a lot of people along the way. And then
No doubt.
I've also, with my research in Ethiopia, I was in Ethiopia for quite a while. So yeah, I've met a lot of amazing people along the way.
Right on. Do you have a favorite place, like a place that you would go back to right now if you could?
Oh, absolutely. I think my favorite country ever was Kyrgyzstan. It's just
Okay, so what
so
made it?
beautiful there.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's wild, well, I guess they're probably not wild horses, but there's just horses everywhere, and mountains and open plains. And it's really peaceful there. There's not that many people.
Okay.
It's relatively close to Mongolia as well, which was another amazing country.
Really? Hey, what was it about Mongolia? Because it always has sounded kind of like a cool place to go.
Yeah, I think I love tent dwelling people.
Okay, yeah, for
As you
sure.
can tell with my love of the Bedouin.
Hmm.
I like places where there's nomadic people. Really, Mongolia has like one major city, and it's a pretty vast space. Their highways, some of them are just dirt tracks. So I
Yeah.
just love being so off grid and in nature, and it's so peaceful. And there's so many different landscapes. Like part of it's desert, part is mountain, and you can just feel all the history there. Like it has an amazing energy.
Yeah, well, it must. Like
Yeah,
Genghis Khan got into the soil, I bet.
yeah. Yeah, you can feel him everywhere. I forget
Yeah, I
what
bet.
percentage of people there are, or throughout Central Asia, are related to him in some way, but it's a very high percentage of people.
I heard that. I heard that
Yeah,
because he liked to spread himself around for sure.
he sure did.
Yeah, he was a fan of sex, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the other countries I loved was Iran. And then one thing that some of the people said is, don't think of the people as the same as the government. And I actually felt super safe there all the time. The people were amazing. If you'd walk into a store, like a convenience store, they'd be trying to give me a bag of chips, or they'd, like, people would just give you the shirt off their back. And of course, I
Oh
didn't want to
wow.
accept that because I don't want to take from people, but they were
Yeah.
such amazing people, and really intrigued by the North American way of life. Yeah, I would definitely go back to Iran.
Wow, that's pretty cool. And I think what you just said about not judging the people based on the government, like
Yeah.
it's got to be that way, right? Because I sure hope people don't judge us based on our government, right? Like,
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people just know what they've heard on the news about Iran, so they think it's a terrible,
yeah,
scary place, but it's stunning, and the people are so nice.
yeah,
And they definitely like have some governmental policies that are questionable,
for sure.
but that's not on the people.
Yeah, because I mean, there's lots of countries over there, not just in the Middle East, that have highly questionable policies, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, it's just the last 20 years, 20, maybe even 30 years. I shouldn't even like say 20, but and probably longer than that. The Middle
Yeah,
East has been demonized, right? So
they have.
yeah, big time.
Yeah, really. I found in the era of like Trumpism, people just say whatever's on their mind, like, often incorrectly, spreading
Oh,
false
incorrect,
news
ignorant.
and
Yeah.
discrimination. It's like just become commonplace to discriminate, which is really frustrating because um, I just find Muslim people to be so kind. I've always said that in Jordan, if you left your car door unlocked and you left $1 million on your car seat, someone would probably like hunt you down and say, look, you left $1 million on your car seat. They wouldn't steal it. They
yeah, that's interesting. And you would only figure those things out by getting immersed in the culture, right? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
And allowing yourself
in
to be.
Ethiopia, there's a lot of Muslim people there, and when I was doing some of my research, these are some of the poorest people I've ever met in my life, and they'd be trying to give me the eggs that their hens laid that day, and that's all that they had, or they had a little bit of flour, they'd be trying to give me that, or they'd be trying to carry my bags for me. And yeah, just the people are so kind. People who have nothing are often the first to give you everything that they have.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And that seems very true the world over, hey?
Yeah,
like
it does. Yeah.
Yeah, when we come across people who are materially, quote unquote, poor, man, they're so spiritually generous. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree completely.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, actually.
Yeah, that's why I love traveling.
Cool.
To see that side of the world.
Yeah, that has always amazed me too. Every time I've traveled, I am not as well traveled as yourself, but every time I go somewhere else, it's first of all, especially when it's like Mexico or somewhere that's not necessarily considered to be the same as North America, right? Like,
yeah,
you just realize that there is a level of poverty that can always get worse, right? Like there's always more poverty.
Yeah.
You know?
One of the moments that was life altering for me in Ethiopia was I came across this older couple. The man was blind and paralyzed. He was a priest, and his wife had cut her finger probably, he said, about 8 or 9 months before that. I had an interpreter, and they were actually very fearful of me at first. They thought I was going to go into their home and steal what little they had. She was unable to move him into the house anymore, so he just laid on a mattress in front of, like, outside in the elements all the time. And they were starting to starve because she couldn't cook anymore because of her finger was so swollen and infected. And he was begging me for help. He said, like, she constantly cries because she's in so much pain. And so when I was there with another couple of academics, and when they pulled up, I just went to them and I said, I just broke down into tears. That wasn't my intention, but I was just so upset. I said, we have to help these people. We have to bring her into town to the doctor. So that was her first car ride ever. She didn't quite know what to do. Brought her into town, and the doctors looked after her, gave her some medicine, and cleaned up the infection. I think they kept her there overnight. And then we all chipped in and we bought them a bunch of things that they might need, like new mattresses, pillows, all that stuff. And then for the duration of the rest of our research there, we'd stop in every day or two and bring some more food. And since he was a priest, they have certain days of the week that they wouldn't eat meat. So he did turn it away sometimes because he was a religious man, which I totally respect. And I didn't know. But yeah, when we left, it was really emotional. I went to visit them, and then the man who was initially extremely fearful of me was calling me Maria, like Mary.
Wow.
Jesus' mother, and that was a huge honor. I'm certainly not. I just really
Damn, you were.
to help him because I would never want to see somebody suffer.
Yeah, and to him, you were Mary. So, I mean, it's okay. It's probably really good for your mental health that you don't think you're Jesus's mom. It's really nice of him to say that to you. That's
yeah.
well, that's fantastic. I mean, and how do you not, right? When you can,
Yeah.
like, how do you not help when you're able to?
Yeah, absolutely. It feels good. I mean, that's the best thing for my mental health is helping other people.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think it's the number one remedy. If
absolutely, yeah,
right?
it's really good.
Yeah, if people out there like have never tried it, like to help themselves, peer support is pretty good. Like going and help a buddy.
Yeah, highly recommend.
Yeah, highly recommend.
10 out of 10.
That's right. It's a 10 out of 10. So how can people find your art if they were so inclined? Because I bet you there will be people who will be inclined.
Oh yes, I would love that. I have a website. It's www.autumn.ca. And on Instagram.
What a great website name.
Thank you.
Yeah, autumn.ca.
I negotiated with the former owner who was sitting on it since 2003.
Oh, really? Well,
yeah.
That's nice. You got it.
Yeah. I was very lucky to get that website.
Mm-hmm.
And then they can also find me on Instagram, and my handle is at OG Creations, and that's OJI.
OJI, okay.
Yeah.
And that's going to be short for Ojibwe.
Yes.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. I got one right.
Yeah. Originally, when I started the company, it was with my ex, my son's father, and he's Cree Métis and I'm Soto Métis, and so I thought it would be witty to do OG for myself, and then Creations was spelled CREE, but then we separated our businesses shortly after, and so I just spelled it regular Creations after that.
It's perfect. It has a nice flow to it.
Yeah.
And that would have been cool though if you guys were still together. That would have been a really cool name, like for
I
sure.
know, yeah.
There's no question that would have been.
I feel like it's been done a few times now, but
yep. And I mean, it's cool to see it. Like it's nice because for lots of reasons, I'm sure. But one of the ones that jump out is that it just keeps putting Cree in people's vocabulary, right?
Yeah.
We want to keep doing that, you know?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. You should be in the vocabulary.
Absolutely.
I took 3 Cree classes so that I could try to learn Cree, and now that was a few years ago, and now I have a bunch of baby board books for my son. So
cool.
We practice Cree. I try to insert Cree and Ojibwe words into everything, and sometimes I'm saying the same word in all 3 languages for my son to learn, to start him early.
Yeah, very good. Very good idea.
Yeah, so, hopefully he'll be multilingual.
Yeah, he will be, I'm sure. You're multilingual? Are you fluent?
Not fluent, but I do find that when I'm listening to some elders speak, that I'm able to pick out a lot of words, and I'm able to understand the general concept of what they're talking about. So as time goes on and I reclaim more languages, it's going to get better and better.
Yeah, that's why I was curious as to what the level of understanding is presently versus when did you start learning the language or languages?
I started learning Cree around 2017 or 2018.
Okay, so that explains why there's like, I should have asked that first, because then we could have I would have assumed you probably weren't fluent at that point.
No, not at all.
But that's still, I bet
it's been more recent that I started learning Ojibwe, which would be more the language that my family speaks.
Oh, okay.
So, but since my family is further west in Manitoba, there's really no Ojibwe language classes around these parts. But one of the things that came out of COVID is that there is a lot more happening online. So I'll be able to find an Ojibwe language class. But yeah, in the meantime, I just kind of teach myself and practice and watch videos and such
That's
online.
cool. And it sounds like if you're able to already, like after like a couple of years of learning, able to discern some words when you're listening to people talk, that's pretty impressive. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, because
I didn't think it would be this way, like starting to learn so late in life and
yeah,
be able to recognize it. But then
it's from your heart though, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
I was in French
Hmm.
immersion growing up. So I feel like maybe there's an advantage when you speak more than one language and you start when you're a kid
Hmm.
to be able to pick up other languages later in life.
There's got to be something connected to that, right? There's definitely some sort of
Yeah,
brain thing that allows for language retention.
yeah, absolutely. I've kind of dabbled in a lot of languages throughout time. Turkish, because I dated a Turkish man for a couple years,
Hmm.
and then Arabic, because my ex-husband was Arab, and then my research with the Bedouin, I kind of
Hmm.
understood their dialect of Arabic better.
Okay.
I'd hear so much repetition when I was doing my interviews with them, so that made it
Yeah.
easier to learn. Um, what else? I was learning Icelandic for a little bit because part of my heritage also is that I have some Icelandic blood.
Oh, cool.
So I went to Iceland for 5 or 6 weeks at one point to do a program there.
Wow. What's Iceland
Yeah,
like? I've always wanted to go.
it's really amazing. I didn't feel like I would connect with it because since I was a kid, I didn't really ever connect with my, um, I guess, European heritage. I only
Hmm.
ever connected with my indigenous heritage. Um, but it actually felt really magical when I was there, and the
Cool.
landscapes are beautiful. And then I was like, oh, I didn't think I'd have another motherland.
Yeah. Aren't the landscapes extraordinary?
They are. There's something
Oh,
really special about Iceland that
very much.
I haven't felt in every country I've visited. So
Yeah.
it's really neat. And then the people there as well, since it's such a small population, um,
Hmm.
I feel like the kids there are more creative than they are here.
Hmm.
And that's partly because it's so much safer there because of the small population. They can go out and do and
Hmm.
explore um, the way kids here might not be able to because of
Yeah.
safety issues. Um, so yeah, um, I met some of my long lost family there, and
Did
um,
you really?
yeah, I got to stay with them
Wow.
for a little while, and I got to do
Yeah.
an excavation at a cemetery, and then what else did I do? I worked at a museum slash library as part of my work term as well. And then we took some university classes for language and culture.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's an incredible place as well.
Wow. Right on.
And then it was during the near 24 hours of sunlight period, so I was sleeping with my sunglasses on.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh yeah. I forget they get that 24-hour sun.
yeah. I'd be interested to check it out during the 24 hours of darkness.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Me too. I
Yeah,
think both would be quite a contrast and
yeah,
interesting. Yeah.
yeah. It kind of throws off your system when you're
I
wandering around
bet.
at 4 a.m. like it's noon.
Yeah. You're getting a suntan at 4 in the morning, right? Like,
Yeah.
wow. That's pretty wild.
Yeah, they've got an incredible art scene there too. I think I don't know if this is correct, but I heard that like kind of 1 out of 4 people there is an artist of some sort.
Wow. It wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, yeah.
That
You
landscape, eh? Like,
walk around downtown Reykjavik, and then like a performance will like a guerrilla performance will just like break out of nowhere.
oh
It's
wow,
like
really?
yeah,
That's very cool.
yeah,
And not surprising because you mentioned it, right? Like the geography of the land would just it breeds creativity, I think, like that
yeah.
isolation, the desolation, like it's
I
very
actually
cool.
during my master's degree, I was teaching one class think it was on landscapes. And I brought up this one video about Iceland where they're some of the most educated people in the world in Iceland. They believe in evolution more so than people in other countries like America.
I like how you say like America.
Scientifically minded people, but they still believe
unlike America.
some folklore things like I think they're called the Folder folk or something, like the little people. And
okay.
they actually diverted a highway around where they're said to live, so that they wouldn't disturb them, because that would bring bad luck or bring bad things. So it's kind of interesting how the landscape can inspire the folklore, which can interfere with things like road construction.
Yeah, and it's pretty interesting, because like being less superstitious would kind of come along with being less like religious, right? Like, because they tend to go hand in hand a bit. That's interesting. Yeah, and very kind as well
there. But since Iceland was colonized so long ago and broke off from the other forms of Christianity that were on mainland Europe, it's interesting how they practiced it differently.
Oh, they must have
found that in the archaeology too. Whereas some people would go to a church in Europe, the churches in Iceland were very, very small. And I think somebody told me that your space to worship could be like one or two people rather than a bunch of people.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite a smaller scale, hey?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, there's no mega church there. That's for sure. No. There's no Foothills Alliance there. Yeah. All the mega churches. Well, that is so cool, because that's on my bucket list of places to visit, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah. Oh, and then once COVID comes down a little bit, I think Iceland Air, whatever the airline is, was leaving from Edmonton, so there was some relatively cheap flights in the past from Edmonton.
Okay,
it'd be nice if they came to Calgary instead.
That would be nice.
Yeah, and I think in the past you could get some flights and like 4 days of accommodations and stuff for $600 or $700.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna
with a trip to the Blue Lagoon.
Yeah.
Keep your eyes open.
I'm gonna keep my eyes open for sure.
Yeah, hopefully they'll resume that soon.
I sure hope so. Are you looking forward to doing some traveling again?
Yeah, it's been a while. Haven't been able to travel since I went to South America in 2017 for a few months, and then just like a week on Vancouver Island, and that was kind of the last time. I just couldn't travel over the past few years with the abusive relationship I was in.
Yeah, I didn't know the extent of that over the last couple of years, but also COVID and stuff like that too. How has it been for you over the last 2 years?
Yeah, it's been interesting. I had a very long 13-month battle to protect my son, and I just won full custody finally. So that's
congratulations.
Great. Thank you. I learned a lot about our justice system, which is a bit misogynist, a bit racist.
Just a bit.
Just a bit.
Just a little tiny bit. Yeah.
Yeah. I hope to burn down the system and rebuild it for domestic abuse survivors.
Yeah.
There's a lot that needs to be changed. I guess probably for women in general, but there's men for domestic violence as well. So domestic abuse survivors in general, there's a lot that could be changed.
But there's far more bigotry towards women.
Attitudes as well, because sometimes they don't say appropriate things.
And that's kind of where I'm coming from. I'm saying, like, in terms of women do get treated worse, right? There's no
Yeah.
question. And I know that if more men reported when they were physically, sexually, or whatever abused, then there might be like, we might be able to actually look at that a little bit more evenly.
Yeah.
Because men don't report, it's really almost impossible to look at.
Yeah.
Right?
And then one thing that I found in reporting to the police is just oftentimes they don't do anything.
Yeah.
No charges come of it. So
Yeah.
you place yourself in a dangerous position, and then nothing comes of it, and you're right back where you started, but you're
That's
in a
right.
position. So yeah, there's a lot that needs to change, and some of the things that I'd like to change are the fact that the statute of limitations I learned was only 1 year, which
Really?
when a person is in the situation, they often don't support it, but in this day and age, they often have good digital evidence of say an assault or whatever afterwards. In my case, I had audio of threats and such, but there was no charges because you kind of have to, the person would have to say, I'm coming back to your house at 3:23 a.m. with a knife and I'm going to slash your throat. Like it has to be very specific and direct. And that's one of the problems with the court system, I feel. They are apparently so bogged down that it has to be that specific for them for the crown to take it on. Because there's no time for them to take anything else on. So oftentimes we're looking at these things after the fact and saying, oh, there was all these red flags and nothing was done about it at the time. Yeah.
And it's too bad, right? Because the court systems are bogged down. And so there's no way that emotional abuse is going to be a crime, right?
Yeah.
Like
even physical and sexual abuse are things that I reported, and nothing was done about those.
And that is absolutely absurd.
Yeah. I really learned a lot about how terrible our system is. Which is why I really want to fight for changes in the future, and hopefully I can get a lot of women together so their voices in combination can be heard and make some changes.
I hope so too.
Yeah.
I hope so too, because it's needed, right? The support for one another, for women to support each other.
Yeah.
But also women who have been victimized to support each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
And not just in terms of the emotional support, but like what you're talking about, moving forward and changing shit, right?
Yeah. The system was built by men for men. And that's what I really found. There's no room for women in it all. And then they get further victimized.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there's a reason why not every woman reports, right? Like it's because they've learned from other women and even from their own experience that there's no solution there.
And it can be a very long process. Like the investigation in my case for everything took nearly a year, and it was right on the cusp of the statute of limitations expiring. And then I was told we're not going to pursue anything. So it can be like very hard and traumatic for a woman or a domestic abuse survivor to deal with as well, is that like you feel like you're not being heard.
Well, and you're not safe, right? Like it's
I had to do a lot of different things for my own safety, wearing a security device and security on my home, and constantly looking over my shoulders and being aware if I'm out and about. So it's hard. There's not help out there for women.
No, there isn't. There's not enough help out there, period.
Yeah.
And especially when it comes to people like women who've been victimized, victims of like abuse, like domestic abuse, rape, sexual abuse, whatever it is that has happened. Like it's it's so out of balance, right? Like where the abuser will actually get an appropriate punishment, right? Like that's so hard to see because it rarely happens,
Yeah, that's right.
you know?
Yeah, and even if they have warrants out for their arrest, then that's
Yeah.
not something the police have time to actively pursue. So they'd have to be stopped at a traffic stop, for
Mhm.
example, or turn themselves in. And that's something
Yeah.
that I'm currently dealing with.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
busy times.
Yeah, it is crazy. Well, I want to thank you so much, Autumn. Like I don't know, I could probably just let you talk all night, but then you'd be tired. Your little man there would probably start getting aggressive. So
I know he's getting a little bit bored over there.
it's all good. I have really appreciate you spending the time with me here. Thank
Well,
you so
thank you
much.
so much for having me. This was fun.
Oh,